So the wife has MS. She needs to take Copaxone 3 times a week. Knowing her, she's probably gonna forget about this. So I figured I would make a case that'll help remind her to take her medication. Furthermore, our honeymoon is gonna come up soon, and I guess that's another good reason to have a case to bring this around, just so it's safe and portable. So a few things with the case we need to consider. Number one is I do want it to house about a month's worth of medication at once. For those who don't know what Copaxone is, they come in needles. They look like this. Doesn't freak her out, but it freaks me out quite a lot. Those are the kind of needles we have to deal with. 4 weeks and 3 doses per week, so 12 syringes in total. I guess the first criteria and parameter is that the case will have to hold 12 syringes. Criteria number 2 is that it has to be light proof because it says protect from light. This drug is sensitive to light. That's pretty simple. I'm just going to use one of my darker color filaments. The third criteria was to keep the temperatures around 2 to 8 degrees if possible, but it could be stored for a month at 15 to 30 degrees Celsius. I initially wanted to use an ice pack to keep it cooler, especially if we're going to be traveling to one of the Asian countries, but it might not be something we need to worry too much about because at the locations we're going to go to, they all have access to a fridge. This criteria luckily is very lax, so we're just going to leave it alone for now. Okay, back to criteria number 1. It has to hold 12 syringes. 12 syringes is actually pretty easy to handle. I'm gonna take out the case again and show you how big they are. And here is what it looks like. I found this piece of foam, I believe we got from a mouse pad or something that I bought, and I think this is gonna come in handy. Not only is this gonna help with impact resistance, air in itself is a really good conductive material for temperatures as well. This is quite bendy and full of holes, so I'm hoping this could help subside some of the temperature changes that the syringes might go through. Here's the other thing. It's the exact size and height of one of these syringes. The actual syringe measures to be around a little over what the caliper is able to do. I want to say about 160 millimeters. To save on space, we could take these out of their packages, but I really don't want to do that. That seems like a stupid idea. Okay, 2 separate sides, looking very, very good. That could work. It looks like a perfect Copaxone sandwich. Oh yeah, there was one more thing I wanted to add to this. This is a very strong recommendation for anybody who has MS, so I'm gonna make a compartment on the side where this can also go in. This turned out to be way bigger than I thought it would be. Yeah, this is way bigger than I thought it would be. Oops. Oh man. It's a brick. Okay, so putting things in perspective, this entire thing fits in this box. That shouldn't be happening. I think the problem is I've given the foam way too much space. To be honest, these snacks are probably Jenny's medication more than her actual medications are, so this will go to good use, I guess. A code dispenser for medication. So at this point, I decided to do a redesign, and I figured I would just walk you through it this time. I first started with the box, and around the sides, to save on material, I made a hexagonal pattern. After the hexagonal design, I made a little box on the bottom that can hold some pills. And finally, I made a slot for a screw to hold everything perfectly in place. And finally, some labels to make sure that the right side is up so the pills do not spill. Okay, so I've been procrastinating making the project for Jenny because I had these other projects I was working on. Turns out procrastinating was the right thing to do because after a few days of receiving the medication, we also received this, which is a syringe aid, I guess you can say. You put the syringe in here and then you jab your legs with it, so it helps you poke yourself. Here's the thing though, this kind of hurts a bit, and since my wife is a nurse who does subcutaneous injections like every other day, she would much rather just not use that and just inject herself with the medication. So we're not gonna be using that, but we are keeping the case. Yeah, that's good because I made a case that was failure and I was gonna make another case, but instead of making another case, I think what I can do is I can just upgrade this case that the C-Sync came in. This case is okay for holding the medication, but there are some problems I have with this. You can easily bend this. That's not a lot of stability, is there? So this case is kind of flimsy. I guess what it comes down to is we have a case to travel around with. It can hold all the medication and meets majority of the criteria we had before. So I'm probably just gonna improve on this one by making it less flimsy. In the middle portion here, there are tons of gaps around here. And this means the medication can move around a lot and will shake around, which is not good. Over here, there is an ice pack. So they did do what I hoped, which is include something here that can keep the syringes cold, even if we're traveling in an area that's a bit warmer. The front part is also a little flimsy. I looked into my bin of misprints and I found out that I had 2 of these printed plates. So these plates are gonna come in here, and now it's much more harder in the front, which means now I just need to print something inside here to just kind of cover these edges and hold that in place. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna build a shell around this part. So I'm gonna make 2 cases here, and then a piece of something here, and a piece of something here to hold that in place. While doing this, I realized I had some misprints for some products I was selling on Etsy that could fit this part perfectly. What are you eating? There's no food around here. Okay, so we did a 3rd redesign on everything, and this is the final product. And as I mentioned, since we're reusing something that I have on my Etsy store and I know exactly the dimensions for it, we can put these as the exact dimensions to fit those 2 things we're using. Those things being the rulers. So these are the rulers that I have on the store, and they belong to the occluders set. They are essentially exactly what it sounds like. They are just rulers. The part that was misprinted for these 2 rulers weren't anything that was very structurally damaging or structurally compromised. There was a slight block of yellow on one of these parts, and this one I was testing a new texture, mixing up different colors. Because they're structurally sound, but they just look a little bit weird, I couldn't sell them, and they make the perfect fitting piece for what I need them to be in this project. First we made the sketch, and then we extruded that, which is just basically the exact dimensions I took with my caliper on the actual case. Then of course we extruded a little bit more and made our first little hole that fits perfectly the ruler we're going to use. I made a plane in the middle, did a midline, and then after using the midline I mirrored it on the other side. Following that we made a shell to make sure it fits properly. For the shell distance I think I used 2mm just because that's a bit more sturdy. And of course we did the revolve to make the actual hinge, and also to make the hinge a print-in-place design. A little bit more adjustments to make it fit better, and then finally we have a lid to this entire thing. And then some fixing up as well as some directional changes to open it up. Following that, I just made the 2 compartments on the inside, and then I made a bit of a unique but not entirely practical design for this. But basically it's a pin on the middle that will have a screw on the top there, and the screw on the top there acts as a lid. So this is what you get. Of course, thread and thread, that's essentially the final product at the end. And of course, because these 2 lids are mirrored, they have to be different types. And because of the different types, I decided to give them little symbols so you can find out which one is which. And here is the final product. It's very print in place for sure. Kind of stable too. Okay, well, definitely very print in place, and the grip on the side is pretty good as well. The part over here was made with 0 tolerance. And when it's 0 tolerance, it's essentially a friction fit. Because this is not coming loose at all. Cool. Oh, and like I said, this is color changing, so in case when we are traveling and the country that we travel to is way too hot, this will turn yellow. And that's when we know that the medication is in trouble. This was made with this in mind, and this is something I sell on Etsy. I know all the exact dimensions for this, which means this should fit in here perfectly. Same thing with this one, which is another thing that suits on the bottom. And if I do this, it should do a perfect friction fit. Let's do a quick demonstration of this. Now it's hot water. So if the color goes yellow, that goes bad. Because specifically the color changes to yellow when it hits 30 degrees, and according to instructions on Copaxone, you're not supposed to get it past 30 degrees. Now, does it actually hold everything here in place? So this is on the larger side, but it closes really nicely actually. It's a bit out, but once you have the zipper up, it's good. Okay, I looked this over again and again, and I think if I actually cut off a little bit of this, this should fit fine over here. This is the other half, and I don't know what happened. That's a huge amount of misprint that has happened here. The texture on the outside is also kind of rugged. The final product still got completed, so I think it's gonna be okay. Okay, so as expected, it is slightly too large. And I think to bring this back, I need to cut down probably about this much from both sides. Okay, I used a little bit of force, but this is pretty sturdy. Let's see if we can actually put the medication in here. We got this part in the center. That's a pretty good fit. And these are the parts I'm worried about, but I think... oh yeah, that fits fine. Nice. This side is, well, there's a piece of plastic on the middle portion protecting this side. On the back side, it's actually pretty good because you got this part, which is the ice pack, and then these parts are now solid with PLA. The edges here are pretty good. It's a bit less round, but I wasn't really going for round. It was kind of a low poly look. I think we achieved it. There's a little bit of bumpiness here. Probably use sandpaper and just take away a couple more centimeters. The edges are really good now because now there's a ruler of PLA on both sides pushing on it. Definitely going to be much more sturdy than without having it. Best part of using this piece is that this is a ruler. So if I put this right here and align it, you can tell exactly how much you need to take off. And it looks like I need to take away around 5 millimeters. I'm going to use a chopping block this time just because I can't be bothered. And after taking that part off, does it still fit? It does. This is still a perfect fit. If anything, it fits better now because the sides are perfectly fitted on both parts. We're not quite done with this project because we got tons of extra space now. It's a shame not to use it. This is the printout after a little bit of redesign. It is now much better, much more sturdier. Nice. And here is the final product. Very sturdy.